Namaskar. A very warm welcome to all of you who are listening this session. You know, understanding human trafficking is a part of a course, certificate in anti-human trafficking program, which is offered by School of Law IGNOU in association with Ministry of Home Affairs. So with this program, I have been telling you that human trafficking is such an issue which needs to be addressed because people are not aware about human trafficking. So we have this program. This program has 3 courses and 1 project. BLE 031 is the first course which talks about understanding human trafficking. You must have seen people standing on the streets for asking you money as beggars. Some people crossing the borders with or without valid passport and visa. Then children, women and men who are working out of choice as domestic help or in hazardous occupations. So you must have seen people who are working in the dhaba, small children working in the dhaba, in the factories. Some places are very hazardous to work, still they do not have any safety equipment. So are they working there as a matter of choice, or there is some vulnerability or a compulsion for them to work? So we have seen people in sex trade, we see porn sites, we have drugs and organ donations working. Then we have, selling and purchasing of people and their womb. I can sell a human being, I can purchase a human being, and then I can also sell my womb. Or I can sell somebody else's womb and I can purchase somebody else's womb. Then we have bonded labor and begar. A person, is under me, he has taken loan from me. For years, he has been paying me in terms of work. But the loan interest never ends. Sometimes, it carries from one generation to another. Still, in India, we do not have people who have bank accounts. So there is a problem. So are these people, are vulnerable, or they are working out of their choice? So working in a hazardous employment, either by a child or by a male or female, is it a normal thing? Then choice of facing trauma and violence every second. So when your human rights are violated, when your constitutional rights are violated, when your legal rights are violated, every second, you are leading a traumatic life, then can you say that you are working out of choice? Or it is because you are vulnerable and the person has used, or the trafficker has used your vulnerability and he has become a customer or a trafficker. So, can you give consent, for illegal activities? You just inject drug and then you just tell me to work as a sex worker. So is it true? Is it, as a matter of choice? Or, you just force me to work in tobacco factory wherein I am a passive, inhaler. I am inhaling that tobacco every second of my work and I am a small child. So is it not a violation of Article 21, right to life? Article 21A, which talks about free and compulsory education for all children below the age of 14 years of age. Then what are the means of trafficking? Force. If I work out of my choice, then that is not trafficking. But if I am forced to work, that is trafficking. If I am working under you, you are my boss. I cannot say no to you. So whatever good or bad you say to me, I just do it, because if I do not follow you, then I have some consequences to bear, which are very inhumane, which are very traumatic, and which will change my life, because I will have, physical trauma, mental trauma, and then lot of, sexual abuse is also there. So in just to, prevent that, just to say no to this trauma, I agree for that work. Maybe as a forced labor I start working for you, or I start working as a beggar, or in your farms without any payment, as a child in your factory, in your dhaba, then in a hazardous employment as a male or as a female, or in a massage parlor, or on the online websites, where sex is sold and sex is purchased. So this course has the answer for all these problems, If you want to know as a human being what you can do to protect yourself from being trafficked, what are your constitutional rights, what are your legal rights, what are your human rights, then you need to do this program. This program focus area is, to create awareness and sensitization about human trafficking, because with 2% of legal education and so much of illiteracy and poverty, we cannot, just have an act or a legislation or a article, and we, in practical terms, we don't find it happening. So we have an article, we have Constitution of India, we have fundamental rights, then we have NHRC, State Human Rights Commission, Child Commission, Women Commissions, Minorities Commission. So we have so many commissions, but if still, human rights are violated, human trafficking cases are there, then we need to create more awareness and sensitization about human trafficking. Then we will discuss the various laws related to human trafficking, and we will understand the role of different stakeholders in prevention, rehabilitation, reintegration of trafficked victims and survivors. So this is very important, We have to prevent oneself from being trafficked. Then we have to rehabilitate the people who have been trafficked, and we have to reintegrate them in the society. So the learning outcomes of this course are that the learners will be able to understand human trafficking. They will be able to understand the role of different stakeholders, agencies associated with the process of human trafficking, directly or indirectly. Then learners who are working as stakeholders, in anti-human trafficking units, in NGOs, in police, as medical professional, at the borders, when we have border security forces, even, when we have railway police, then we have TT. So everybody has an important role. An educationist has an important role, because, if we have this education at the level of school, college and university, then we can create awareness and sensitization about human trafficking, and we will first protect ourselves from being trafficked, and then our family members, our society, and then the community. So all the stakeholders who are working in this field of human trafficking will be updated, will be informed about the standing operating procedures, SOPs required by the government, and then with the latest technological interventions, how can they address the issue of human trafficking. So this is very important, that the stakeholders are working, but working with commitment, working with sensitivity, working with, proper training and updation makes a difference. So this course focuses on, upgrading your skills. So I will request all the stakeholders to join this course on Swayam. Then the learners will be able to start human trafficking clubs in their families, societies, communities, school, college, university and workplace. Then the learner will also be able to make reasoned choices to bring down the demand factor for human trafficking. If I can cut the demand factor for human trafficking, if we all pledge that we will not, see any pornographic website where, human body is sold or purchased, we will not use child for any kind of work, because the child needs education, the child needs, proper care for his or her development. So if we make these things into our mind and with conviction, if we decided, then we are going to cut down the demand. And if we cut down demand for this crime, the supply will be also affected. If I do not pay, beggar money on the streets, then beggary will be finished. Beggary is, punished in India, but still we find small children with, ladies. So ladies come on the street at the traffic lights, ask for money, and people, out of morality give 5 rupees, 10 rupees, 1 rupee. Where does the money go? The child is, drugged, the child is abused, and many times the small children, do not even survive after few months of trauma and drug addiction. So one has to think where to show humanity and where to say no, because this is a crime. We have a Juvenile Justice Act which talks about child in need of care and protection. We have different mechanisms at different levels. So when the government has a mechanism, let us implement it. Let us complain. If I see a child who is asking, alms on the street, I will definitely complain. So I am making a reasoned choice. If somebody gives me a lucrative offer that, okay, I will just, take you to the other country without a valid passport or a visa, so I should just think that, okay, I want to work, I want to earn more, but I will only go when I have a valid visa and valid passport. Similarly, in a village, when people go and say, okay, I will get your wife, daughter married because you are so poor that you cannot afford her marriage. So I have a person, I have a groom, so you just give your daughter in marriage. And where does that daughter goes after that, nobody knows. I will take your child to the city, he will study, he will do work, he will get 3 times meal. What will a father think about it? What will a mother think? So out of my vulnerability, I send my children. So there I do not make a reasoned choice. By educating the people of India, they will be able to make reasoned choices. Then, awareness amongst the representatives of village, district, state and national level is very important. All the politicians, all the village panchayats, should be trained in human trafficking so that they implement the policies and programs of government properly at the rural level. If we implement the programs run by government, either the state governments or the central government, then we will break this vicious circle of poverty and the vicious circle of human trafficking. So we have to remove the vulnerability. In a welfare state, we have to address this vulnerability. Think about in terms of, why a person is, giving consent. Consent in contract for illegal thing is never a valid consent. So you have to think about it. So if we are able to educate our representatives, then we have a better say, a better world to live in. The structure of this course is very simple, First, you will know about human trafficking. This is a 12-week course. So first is that we have to discuss what is human trafficking. Then causes and types of human trafficking. Then human trafficking laws in India. Then what are the international conventions and declarations related to human trafficking. Then how will you understand that this is a trafficker? Profiling offender. I don't take a label of trafficker. So how will you know that this person is a trafficker? I don't put a label of a victim of trafficking. So how will you know that this person has been trafficked? So we will understand how to profile offenders, how to profile victims. Then what is the link between missing persons and trafficked people? Then what is the role of different stakeholders in preventing, rehabilitating, reintegrating the trafficked victim? And then most important is the need to create, human trafficking club. So small clubs can work in the family. You have a WhatsApp group, a family group, you have, friends group. Why don't we have a group of human trafficking where we discuss basic issues? Suppose I see a beggar, then I report at 112 and then I tell my family members that today I saw a beggar on the street. I have reported it. If the beggar is a child, then child line number 1098, or I have just reported to the helpline number 112. So if I report on 112, then the police comes in action and then that person will be rescued, that boy will be or the girl will be rescued and sent to homes because he is a child in need of care and protection. So the duration of this course is 12 weeks. We all know that the Swayam courses are free of cost, and for certification you need to pay. So if you want to have a certification, you want a certificate from Swayam, then you need to pay. The course includes e-content. E-content is, in the form of SLM, which we have developed for the program, Certificate in Anti-Human Trafficking, and then the course BLE 031. So you have a e-content. Then you have different articles which we will be posting because some people have written very good articles. Then we have standing operating procedures. We have some UN agencies working very well on human trafficking. Then we have Government of India who has also worked, tremendously for, addressing the issue of human trafficking. So we will have this e-content. We will have videos. So you will have access to different videos, different experts, different faculty members talking to you. Then we have discussion forums and activities and quiz, because activities and quiz will keep you updated, and if you have any doubt, then I, the course coordinator, will be always there to help, to discuss, to interact with you. Assessment will include, the assignments and term and examination. So if you need certification, then you need to write your assignments and you also need to give exam. Then who can join this program. It is very important. All the doctors, who are working on field, because any human trafficking case is always after the rescue, first thing is medical examination of the person who has been trafficked, because so much of medical need, so much of psychological need is needed for the victims of trafficking. So doctors can join this program. Paramedical staff is because the nurses, the attendants, how do they, look with dignity? If you are looking at a person with dignity and worth, then with respect, that makes a big difference in the life of person who has always been looked down upon, somebody or the other. Then it is for paramilitary and military personals, because we don't have army situation where war situation every time. So they contribute a lot. We have lot of learners as doctors and army workers. So we have lot of people, professionals from army, who are doing this program. Then psychologists, because every victim of human trafficking has gone through lot of trauma. So he needs or she needs a psychologist. So how should the psychologist address the cases of human trafficking? Then the stakeholders who are working in human trafficking can also join this program. Then the students, because you need to be aware. So if you are 10 plus 2, the eligibility is only 10 plus 2. So if you are 10 plus 2, that means you have completed your intermediate, then you can enroll in this course. Any housewife, because housemakers are very important in the family. So if I am legally educated, I will be able to address the issues of cyber crime. So much of criminal activities are going in and around us. Even at home we are not safe because we have cyber threats. So any housemaker can join this program. Then border security personnel can also join this program. Security officials can join this program. Representatives at local, state and national levels can also join this program. All the administrators can join this program. Teachers and any other professional can join this program. If you are interested in joining this program, then you have to just visit the Swayam portal. So just visit the Swayam portal, type in the course Understanding Human Trafficking. This is a course which is offered on the Swayam portal and from IGNOU. So if you just click on this link, it will take you to Understanding Human Trafficking course link. Therein you have a button join. So just click on join and then you can join. Thank you for the session. In the end, I would just like to tell you all that stay safe. Safety is the priority of the current need, and do utilize your time in some productive learning. And this is the best time, wherein we can upgrade our skills, we can interact with our family members, we can know how can we improvise our education. So I would just like to say goodbye to you all, and we will meet again in the second session. Thank you all.